Hello everyone, this is Art Naturalist Vicki checking in with you today from Doheny State Beach on a beautiful spring day. I'm here today to share with you some of the magical mysteries and wonders of our beautiful visitor center here at Doheny. So as you can see right next to me here, we have, as soon as you walk in the door, we have a simulated man-made tide pool to illustrate the tide pool habitat that can be found up and down the Pacific coast. Here at Doheny, we have a cobblestone tide pool, basically a big pile of rocks, and at low tide, people can go out there and gently explore the tide pool habitat without stepping on anything, without taking anything and putting them in buckets. However, obviously the tide isn't always low, so at high tide, we invite you to come and look at the indoor tide pool to see some of the things that would be found in the tide pool habitat. Okay, so you can see through the window there, we have a leopard shark, and that particular type of near-shore sand shark starts its life in a near-shore tide pool environment. And you can see he's very relaxed on this beautiful spring day. Just checking things out. We have some croakers, and as the name implies, they almost sound like they're burping, like that. Bad manners, you can hear them burping. And of course, they're being a little quiet right now. Spot-fin croakers. And underneath the sandy tide pool here at Doheny, you can see the tail of a shovel-nosed guitarfish or a type of ray. So any sandy beach, make sure when you go walking into the ocean, do that stingray shuffle so you don't step on one of the round stingrays, especially going into spring, summer, and fall. That's mainly when they come close to shore because they love to bask in the warm water. So some of the things are alive in the tide pool. Some of the things are made to look alive. This is a real common creature that lives on the rocks, barnacles and mussels, but these are simulated to look like the real thing. We have some beautiful castings of sea urchins and abalone and different types of sea snails. And here at Doheny, with the addition of crabs, that's probably the #1 creature that we have in the tide pools, at the cobblestone tide pool at Doheny, are snails and crabs. Okay, well, as you can also see, not only do we have the indoor tide pool, we have a variety of display cases celebrating some of the other natural wildlife that can be found at Doheny State Beach and coastal Southern California, in the interior, in the Santa Ana Mountains. So I've done some videos in the past. You can also check those out with each particular display case. Last time we got together, I talked about birds. So if you want to check that video out, you can learn a little bit more. But in this part of the museum, the visitor center here, we have taxidermed mounts of birds and mammals. So we have some things that were alive at one time, maybe got hit by a car. With some of these raptors, they might have gotten electrocuted, and we bring them to a taxidermist and have them mounted to look like the real thing. So we do have a large variety of birds in the trees, and the eucalyptus trees, and around the park and the creek and all along the beach. And this particular display case is celebrating the tide pool that I already talked about. So we have some exoskeletons in here. Crabs and lobsters have an external skeleton, so they molt or shed their skeleton in order to get larger. So if you look at these, they're huge, beautiful. And these are some of the shells from the sea snails too. Genuine artifacts. Okay. In addition to the nearshore habitat, we have a whole array of offshore animals that live here along the California coastline, Oregon and Washington. And these are some of the artifacts from them. So we have some bones, some skulls, and in celebration of the Festival of Whales, this is baleen from a gray whale. That's the star of the festival, are the gray whales, because springtime marks when they've already gone down to Baja, had their babies, kind of rested up for their journey back up north. And this is baleen. They have fringy teeth, so to speak, that hang down from their jaws, and that's how they filter out all the little crunchy and slimy things that they eat. And by the way, it's made out of the same thing as our fingernails and our hair. They're a mammal like us. Okay, and Grunion, March is the time of year where we start having the Grunion. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of them wash up on the beach, and they wiggle and lay their eggs in the sand. The males fertilize the eggs. About 2 weeks later, all the little babies in the eggs percolate, and they come out and hopefully make the journey back to the ocean. However, and I might have talked about this with my bird mind, the black-crowned night herons are waiting for that phenomenon to happen, and then they eat the grunion and they eat the eggs, and it's kind of an interesting balance between predator and prey. Finally, the last display case that we have here is celebrating the land mammals, and like the bird video, I did a little video focusing on the land mammals, and we do have a lot here at Doheny, but most of them are nocturnal. All right, so you look over here. This is a little table that we allow visitors to manipulate and look at some of the things that are in the display cases. Like I said, we're celebrating Festival of Whales. So this is from a whale. What do you think this might be in the whale skeleton? Okay, if you said, well, maybe, Miss Vicki, it's a rib bone. So look at how big. Big animal, about 50 feet long. Like I said, we have all kinds of cool bones, and right now we have rocks here. And every few months or so, we've changed this out so you can see different things and manipulate them. This right here is a vertebrae. Okay, we have the skull. Okay, and moving along here in our little virtual tour of the visitor center. We have a little lounge. We do have, in addition to the whales and the dolphins, we have pinnipeds, thin-fitted little marine mammals, and we have harbor seals and sea lions that mainly hang out in the Dana Point Headland Cove. And if you want to see or hear them, you can see them on, I call them Harbor Seal Rock out there in the Headland Cove. It's kind of fun. All right, our last stop is some of the other living displays that we have here in the museum in Dana Point at Doheny. So you have some rocky habitats in the ocean, and living in them, well, what do you see in there? We have a nice big barred sand bass in there. And they live not only in the rocks, but they live in the kelp forest off Dana Point and San Clemente and Laguna for that matter. Okay, also living in the rocks are California spiny lobsters. Okay, and as I talked about the moltings, a lot of times people take walks on the beach and they see the moltings or the castings, and they think that they're dead lobster, but now you know they're casting or molting, shedding their skeleton to get bigger. And they love hiding in the rocks. I wonder why. In addition to the lobsters, in a rocky habitat, we have more eels. You can see them in Catalina Island and Crystal Cove. They love to live there. I've never heard of anybody really seeing one here in Dana Point or in Doheny, but they're out there. And they're kind of a fun creature and really misunderstood because they have a hard time breathing, so they have their mouth open all the time. And if you look at their mouth, their teeth, really sharp teeth. And that's their adaptation, how they breathe. And he kind of looks like he's just cruising along. Looks like a sea snake, doesn't he? Look at him. He's doing more eel yoga this morning. I love it. All right. So in addition to the rocky offshore habitats, near and offshore, as I said, we have kelp forests. A lot of people don't realize that. They associate kelp forests with Northern California. However, we're really lucky that we have big kelp forests depending on how warm the water is. They love cold water, unlike us humans. And the kelp forests are really bountiful right now in Dana Point, Headland Cove. And once again, if you were to take a walk out there on the nature trail by the City of Dana Point's Visitor Center and the little single track trail, hopefully you can see the kelp forest and maybe even see a whale spout. It's a really good spot to go looking. So these particular fish live there, and this big daddy over here is a calico bass or a kelp bass. So you can see part of its adaptation. It blends in. And look at his beautiful eyes. He's coming up to the glass because I think he thinks I'm going to feed him. Right, and I'm a San Clemente girl. I live in the city of San Clemente, and the city of San Clemente has a pier, and that's what this display case is showing you, the life of underneath a pier. So the pier pilings is a little mini habitat all on its own. It's like a little ecosystem. And you can see on the pier pilings who's hanging out there. I already talked about him, right? And then you have mussels and barnacles and sponges. And where there's mussels, if you're lucky, there's also sea stars. You have ochre stars, bat stars. Here at Doheny, we mainly have brittle stars that can be found in the tide pool. Oh, right, and finally, like the aquarium over here, you have one that's featuring that beautiful moray eel again. All right. Well, I hope that you enjoyed seeing some of the beautiful displays that we have here in our museum and our visitor center at Doheny. And we hope eventually to reopen soon and invite you to enjoy it because it's free, it's for you to enjoy, and we hope to see you soon. So enjoy the Festival of Whales, get out, it's going to be a beautiful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you in the park. Happy trails!